Have you ever wondered what would happen to a cleric in Dungeons and Dragons who loses his faith? Or a warlock who strikes a bargain with more than one patron? Or another one who decides to steal powers from the patrons? If the answer is yes, keep listening, because today we are talking about losing your religions in Dungeons and Dragons. Hello adventurers, and welcome to a new episode of News from Arcadia. This is Marco from the Emerald Island. Before anything else, don't forget to like this video and subscribe on the channel for new video like this. Today I will talk about the article Losing Our Religion by Mario Ortegon from number 9 of Arcadia. I will discuss that with Finn the Fighter. Hello Finn.
Hello, Mark.
Agnes, what are you doing here?
But Finn couldn't make it, so
Why? What happened to him?
why do you care? I can tell you everything you need to know about the subclasses.
Do you know a cleric who was rejected by their deity?
Of course, the always enraged Connor, even though he was very vague about his original affiliation and how he became disconnected from his deity. Anyway, when I met him, he was serving the Anathema domain.
Oh, and which deity grants such domain?
Matters and don'ts. No one and everyone, of course. He didn't have a deity to serve anymore.
Oh, okay, let's say that I understand.
Yeah, that's better.
Anyway, did he still get powers?
Do you think they would call it domain otherwise? As it's pretty usual, he received additional spells to prepare. Inflict wounds, protection from evil and good, whole person, ray of enfeeblement.
Like if this was a normal domain.
Except it wasn't, by the wrath of the grandmothers. He could access all the ritual spells, prepared or not, because he had no boundaries.
And this without consequences and with no limits.
When was the last time you could do that? He could get only spells up to the level he could actually cast, and he would get 1d6 psychic damage per spell level.
Okay, what else?
He was always able to cast the Bane spell.
At will?
Grandmothers, no! As many times as his proficiency bonus.
Well, a nice spell, but not much of a power.
But it was not limited to that. First of all, he cast it as a bonus action instead of an action. Also, if he used a reaction, he could make the d4 become a d6. And this became a d8 when he reached the 11th level and a d10 at 17.
An interesting power. Speaking of which, what was his channel divinity power?
He could try to alter the chances of people within 30 feet of him to be damaged or be healed. As an action, he could create an area around him which lasted 1 minute or until he was unconscious. In that area, radiant or necrotic damage or magical healing had a 50% chance of not working at all.
Very useful against undeads.
Or celestials, as he was always keen to point out.
Exactly. How did you get involved with this cleric?
You don't really want to know it, do you?
Probably not. But you seem to have been adventuring with him a lot. Did he get his 8th level power?
Yes, he did. He was able to add his wisdom modifier to all the damages inflicted with his cantrips.
Useful. And what was his capstone power?
Well, at 17th level, he could keep the Bane spell without concentration. Moreover, each round, the first time a creature was affected by the Bane spell, it would take psychic damage equal to the rolled die.
Did he ever get back to his deity?
No, but I know someone who instead embraced the Atonement domain.
You are going to tell me that this is another domain without a deity, right?
Of course it's without deity. You committed a sin and now you have to atone. You know how it goes with the gods.
You don't seem to have much respect for the gods.
Do you want to talk about witches or about the Atonement domain?
Very well, let's talk about the Atonement domain. You said you knew someone.
That's what I said, right? Erin, who would never drop a chance to do good.
You didn't like her, did you?
Me? She was always so nice. was ready to sacrifice herself for the good of the party. And of course, her domain gave her all the tools she needed.
Like?
She had an extended set of spells like False Life, Sanctuary, Enthrall, Warding Bond, and all the other spells which would be useful in helping the Anathema, which he always had ready.
But you also have an extended set of spells to choose from, right?
Don't you ever compare me to her, or I will transform you into a frog. Forever.
Okay, no need to make threats. What else?
At the first level, she gained an additional proficiency. Heavy armors and medicine or religion skill.
Heavy armors make sense. A cleric is often a tank.
In case of Erin, she was sure a tank. Full of
Agnes, please.
mothers and nuns. You are so boring. Anyway, she also got this ability at first level. When she and others were hit by something like a fireball or a dragon breath, she was able to make someone else automatically save against that effect if she failed hers.
Was that all? Didn't she get any other power?
Are you insane? Who would ever follow a god if that were all you would get from it? At second level, she could take the damage which would have reduced another creature to 0 hit points.
Did she prevent other effects like being poisoned?
No. But she would be reduced at most to 1 hit point from the damage. And she would also give temporary hit points to the other creature equal to her level.
What about her 6th level power? Was she already there?
Of course she was. Do you think I would go adventuring with people with less than 6 levels? Anyway, when she was going to make someone succeed the saving throw, she would take half damage from a failure, and I will take only half damage.
You? What have you to do in this case?
What do you mean?
You said I would take only half damage.
Quick, mother. Of course. When I was fighting together with her, that would happen.
Of course. Anyway, what did she get at 8th level?
At last, all the sacrifices started to be repaid. Once per round, when she hit a creature, she could inflict a d8 points of radiant damage.
Not bad.
And at the 14th level, this would have become 2d8s. And that's not all. At the 17th level, she could make 2 creatures automatically save instead of 1. And neither of them would take damage. Wouldn't that be great?
Didn't she reach that level?
Clerics and gods are boring. Why don't we talk about warlocks who stole their powers instead?
A warlock can steal his powers?
Well, usually, if you mess with a patron, you end up destroyed. Or worse.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
But a few can actually do it and live to tell the tale.
And I'm sure you know someone like this.
Of course, my cousin Liam.
You have a cousin? I didn't know.
He is not a real cousin. He was a warlock who was serving the aunts. We all call ourselves cousins.
And your cousin stole his power from your aunts.
Yep.
And how did you do that?
Well, it's not one of those things you are very open about. The aunts were not happy about it, but they found him useful. At least for a while.
And he got the same powers which they gave you?
Grandmothers, no! He stole his powers. He was a thief. Of course, that has to show in some way.
And what was the way?
First of all, the list of spells which he had access to. Alarm, identify, knock, pass without trace, non-detection, arcana, freedom of movement, mislead, password.
This seems more akin to a thief than a warlock.
In more ways than you can imagine. He became proficient in the sleight of hand and the thieves too.
Yeah, just like a thief.
Only he didn't use the normal tools. He was able to create them as a bonus action out of thin air. And they reflected the nature of the grandmothers. He had small bones and tricks and lizard tongues and all the kind of things you wouldn't expect to work, but they worked nonetheless. And he was able to use his charisma instead of his dexterity.
Are all the tools shaped in that way?
No, absolutely not. It depends on the patron from which you stole, borrowed, as Liam liked to say, your powers. If you borrowed your powers from a fiend, your tools will be made of iron with black and red runes and warm to touch. If it was a fae, they would probably be made of mithril and they would glow in the moonlight.
Oh, understood. I understand. What other powers did he steal?
At first level, he was able to borrow some arcane knowledge from the aunts. He used to perform this haste, where he entered in a trance-like state for 8 hours. If the haste was successful, he was able to get half his warlock level, rounded up, in warlock spells he didn't already know, between 1st and 5th.
And how did he determine if the heist was successful?
He had to do a thieves' tools check using charisma, with a DC equal to 10 plus the total level of spells.
And what happened if he failed?
Well, he would get something, just one spell. But each time he used it, he would take psychic damage equal to the level of the spell.
And how long did he keep the spell?
Until the next long rest or until he used the feature again.
Well, what else did he get?
At 6th level, he could use his thieves' tools to dispel magical effects within 5 feet of himself.
Interesting.
It is, right? Also, because since he's using the thieves' tools, he could add also his proficiency bonus. And there is more.
More?
Yes. Not only he would dispel the effect, he was able to transfer the effect on himself. And he could use this ability a number of times equal to his proficiency bonus.
What did your cousin obtain at 10th level?
At 10th level, he got a counterspell spell, once per long rest and without using a spell slot.
Well, it seemed in theme, even though a little late.
Grandmothers and aunts, let me finish. If he succeeded, he would get part of the magical energy in the form of temporary hit points. So he would get 1d10 plus twice the level of the spell.
Useful for sure. And what was the capstone power?
At 14th level, once per long rest, he was able to borrow the power of the fallen enemies.
Interesting. And what did it mean?
He could use his reaction and regain a warlock spell slot.
That's it?
Let me finish. He could also become proficient in whatever saving throw the creature was proficient, and could learn one of the innate spells the creature had, if any. All of this lasted until a long rest, and once he used his reaction in this way, he had to do a long rest before using it again.
Now I'm curious, do you have other cousins?
I think at this point it would be good to talk to you about Maeve.
Maeve?
Yes. We found her when she was very young. The grandmothers could see an affinity with her, so she became a cousin until...
Until?
Well, we discovered that she didn't just have an affinity with the grandmothers, but with a number of other creatures. A lot of them. Eventually, she said that her patron was the compound of all those patrons. I kept thinking that it was the chaos.
Anyway, what powers did she have?
As you can expect, she had additional spells. But due to the nature of her pact, it was a strange list. It included detect evil and good, and magic missile, aid and enhance ability, conjure animals and spirit guardians, conjure minor elementals, divination, legend lore, and finally planar binding.
An unusual list for sure, but not so strange after all.
And that's not all. She had this thing, she called it her catalog. It included 2 skills, 2 weapons, and 2 tools.
And she was proficient in all of them?
No, she was not. But at each short rest, she could decide in which of the 6 choices she was proficient.
Unusual but useful. Anything else at the first level?
Of course, all those patrons manifested around her as a motley crew of invisible, intangible spirits. At first, we thought that she was seeing things, but no, they were actually there. All these tiny spirits in the form of a ghost, sprite, a devil, a celestial, all around her.
And what did they do?
At first level, she could use her reaction to cause one of the spirits to help a creature within 30 feet of her. This would grant a d4 for an ability check or an attack roll. And if the ability check or the attack roll was part of a catalog, the d4 became a d6.
What did she get when she reached the 6th level?
Well, at that level, she could use her bonus action to get help from her motley crew.
What kind of help?
She would have half coverage against ranged attacks. She wouldn't get disadvantage for doing range attacks within 5 feet of her target, and she would do concentration checks with advantage.
Nice. How many times she could use that?
Once per rest, and then she had to use one of her other uses of the motley crew.
And what did she get at 10th level?
At 10th level, things started to become interesting. You see, all those patrons speaking to her, she had to develop special abilities.
What do you mean?
First of all, she had 2 packed boons, not just one.
Like the Pact of the Chain and the Pact of the Blade?
Yeah, and moreover, when she reached the 11th level, she could choose 2 spells from the Mystic Arcanum and cast one of them per long rest.
That would account for quite some flexibility.
But you haven't heard the most crazy power she gained. When she reached the 14th level, she could concentrate on 2 spells at once.
Really? That's quite unheard of.
It is, right? But she could do that. It was like her mind was split in 2. Each part focusing on one spell. She could lose one spell and keep the other. It was crazy.
I'm sure it was.
Well, that's it. Now I have to go.
Of course, feel free to go. And if you want to know more about the grandmothers and the aunts that Agnes kept mentioning, take a look at the video about the subclasses of the hags.